I thought I could also start the conversation with you with the spicy news of Elon Musk's Neuralink brain chip, which is now being tested on humans. What's the Neuralink project about, and what could go wrong? Some people are very terrified about this.
Yeah, so Neuralink is currently being sort of framed as, oh, it's for people that are quadriplegic or have traumatic brain injuries, things of that nature. But Musk elsewhere has been quite open that he sees a much larger commercial opportunity than people who are permanently disabled. And promotes the product as saying things like, oh, you'll be able to access your phone just with your mind and all of this. So from statements he's made and other documentation, it's quite clear that Neuralink is not going to just stop with enabling disabled people to use electronic devices. The idea is to sort of eventually, I think, usher in the next era of what smartphones are right now, right? So we had the computer, revolution, personal computer revolution. Everyone has a personal computer, to everyone also has like a mobile phone that is a computer, essentially a smartphone. And the next step for that they've had set up for a long time, but they've had problems with adoption of it, is wearables, wearing your smartphone and smart devices, essentially. And then after that, the goal is to have it move from being on your body to within your body. And that's where Neuralink comes in. And so, they're currently in human trials, but there's other brain-machine interfaces, which is what Neuralink is, that are much farther along in the clinical trial sense than Neuralink, and started a year or two ago. Putting these brain chips in people. So this is something in terms of a market that is more advanced than Neuralink. Neuralink is just the best known one. And obviously there are risks there by allowing someone like Elon Musk, who is not just developing Neuralink, of course, he is also a contractor for US military and intelligence agencies, access to your neurological data, your thoughts, essentially. Obviously a lot of risks there. And when you consider also that he's developing, or has developed this satellite internet functionality, Starlink, which works with Space Force, works with the Pentagon and all of this, it's assumed that Starlink and Neuralink will link together, right? And there'll be some sort of interface there, which no, I don't want my brain connected to the same network that the Pentagon and an intelligence agency is using. You might as well give the billionaires your brain in a bag. And that's essentially how I sort of see the brain chip thing being going forward. And ultimately, it comes down to reality manipulation, which if you look at some of the big architects of this space, Henry Kissinger and Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, wrote a book about AI and essentially how it's going to be used for managing how people perceive reality. And of course, if you can control how people perceive reality, you control their behavior. And so, between, AI manipulating us in terms of manipulating our preferences or the information we read through censorship, but also through producing the content that we read online through ChatGPT and other things. You also add the AI brain chip component to it later. The goal is to have, our reality be managed in unprecedented ways by whoever controls the AI, because it's not nominally it would be the AI controlling those things, but someone programs the AI and gives it its objective functions. And those, of course, are Silicon Valley firms. And some of them may seem like independent companies, but probably the most well-known one at this point, OpenAI, which produces ChatGPT, is essentially an extension of Microsoft at this point. And so we can assume that the biggest AI algorithms and AI companies are going to at one point or another be tied to the biggest of the big Silicon Valley companies, meaning, Google or Amazon or Microsoft or, ones of that nature. And essentially all of those companies have the same ties that Musk has to the military and to intelligence agencies, because these big tech companies contract for them. And at the same time, they dominate political donations to both parties in ways that are very significant. So you could really argue that Silicon Valley is the de facto governing force in the United States today, which is quite disturbing when you
Yeah.
consider some of the connections of those CEOs, most of which actually were subpoenaed as part of the J.P. Morgan Jeffrey Epstein lawsuit that
Yeah.
was settled, to sort of give you, your audience an inkling of who these guys are. And Epstein, of course, himself was a big transhumanist guy, very interested in brain chips and brain science and all of this. So there's definitely a group of people here that have particular agendas they want to advance with this whole brain chip thing, but at a more broader level. And you see this with Musk too, in terms of his desire to turn Twitter into WeChat, is to
Yes.
essentially harvest as much data from people as possible, because the new adage, right, is data is the new oil. And so
Yeah.
if you can control the vast majority of data,
Yeah.
then you're, like the oil baron, the data baron of the new era. You're the Rockefeller of the data era, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
I-
there's essentially monopolies being formed here, and Elon Musk wanting to create the everything app. Obviously, the everything app plus brain chips and whatever is going to produce so much data that it will keep him an oligarch for the rest of
Yeah.
his life.